Is it a bird? Is it plain? Is it old? Is it new? Can it save you tremendous amounts of money? Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. My name is Gita Marie, and on this channel it's all about consumers getting an overview and understanding how to navigate in a world where it's increasingly important to care about our impact and be as sustainable as we can. I could say that there are three main categories that account for the majority of consumer impact, and it's what kind of food we eat, how we transport ourselves, and the homes we live in, which both accounts for what we fill them with and what kind of resources we use to make them comfortable living spaces. But those three factors, food, transport, and home, is sort of the main factors to look at if we want to be efficient in our sustainability. I talk a lot about food and transportation, so today we're gonna dive a little bit into the third factor. Did you know that buildings account for 40% of Europe's energy consumption? This surprised me because that is a lot. I feel like we also need to do an impact analysis video on concrete, so that is coming up as well. Unfortunately, when we look at the impact of buildings, a really big factor is energy waste. Because when buildings, homes, offices, and factories aren't energy efficient, a lot of energy is used for nothing. And we really can't afford that in this climate. The world economy is also expected to double in the next 20 years. And if that gives you anxiety, same girl. But this is not going to be the world is overpopulated and there's no way that that can be sustainable kind of spiel. I don't need to say that, plenty of politicians are already saying it. And you know what, the whole angle of overpopulation is also a misrepresented myth. Because the problem isn't necessarily the number of people alive. The problem is how those people act and how many resources they're using. In 2023, 60% of consumers expressed concern over the rising energy prices, and 25% worried about potential blackouts. I do not assume that that number has gone down. While a lot of technology exists that potentially could make our impact smaller, a lot of consumers simply do not have access to it because they can't afford it. In the European Union alone, it's estimated that around 34 million people are classified as energy poor. And that's why we desperately need to talk about affordable and accessible energy saving measures. So what's the solution? While there might not be one solution, I definitely know someone that can cast a better light on this. I am here at Grundfos today, and you might not know who they are, but chances are you're using one of their products every single day. Let's go! This video is part of my collaboration with Grundfos, a global pump and water solutions company, widely recognized for its efforts in advancing energy efficiency, and they're here to help me understand my impact as a consumer and how I can use resources smarter. I was invited to their headquarters, which is just an hour away from where I live. Here I got to see their production and learn something about the company's history, as well as a lot more about this little hidden hero. First I met up with Gitte, who is representing domestic building services, so our households, in their Western Europe division. What is the circulation pump and what does it do?
So a circulation pump is a small pump that circulates the hot water around in your heating system in your house. It can be in a boiler, gas boiler system, heat pump system. It can also be an underfloor heating system.
So why is this important? In every single building that has running water, you will see some variation of a circulation pump. I had no idea what this was before I started this collaboration. By the way, I can safely say I've become a little bit of a geek about it. So inside this thing, there's a little motor that takes the water where it needs to go. And that uses electricity. And as you can probably imagine, older versions are less efficient than newer versions. And the difference in how much electricity some of these guys use is astronomical. According to Grundfos, a circulation pump can account for about 10% of your overall electricity bill. I got a tour of the showroom and museum. I saw different types of pumps in action, including flooding pumps, which unfortunately aren't going to be any less relevant in the future. On the tour, we also talked about how wild it actually is that we use perfectly good drinking water to flush the toilet. I told Grundfos about my shower bucket that, if you remember, is the bucket I keep in my shower, where I catch excess water so I can flush my toilet with that instead. Very practical solution. A more advanced version would be a water circulation system that reuses the water in your household. Until I can get that, I'll be using my shower bucket, please and thank you. I also got a tour of their factory and recycling workshop. Now, I couldn't film all of it, design secrets and everything, but I got to film what to me was the most important, the take-back program. Because in Denmark, Grundfos recycles and reuses old pumps. So when we look at the overall impact, it means that more than 99% of the impact from the pumps comes from the use phase and minimally from the production. And this actually takes me for a loop, because I'm a firm believer in the if it ain't broken, don't fix it mentality. But in this case, changing an approximately 10 to 15-year-old pump will not only be more sustainable, it will also be cheaper.
In many cases, it is so that people that have a house are not aware that they have a circulation pump in their house. They don't know that there can be a potential for an energy saving in such a pump.
Sometimes the best ways to optimize how we use energy and overall resources in our homes isn't going to be the big, sparkling, interesting, and as Gitte puts it,
maybe not the most sexy thing to change.
Which ultimately means that this part of our home's impact is deeply lacking awareness. And I guess one reason why that is because when we buy something new for our home, both in terms of aesthetics as well as in terms of energy optimization, it comes with a certain level of consumer identity. What we buy and what our homes look like signals something to the world about us. That's not only true for our car or the way we dress, it's also true for what kind of windows we put in our homes or what kind of appliances that we have. But what kind of circulation pump your home has typically is not related to any kind of consumer identity, which I guess is why we don't talk about it as much, and why a lot of consumers don't necessarily prioritize investing in a newer version.
If you want to reduce your electricity bill, there could be a big potential in looking for this pump, because if it's more than 10 to 15 years old, you can actually reduce the electricity consumption in such a pump with 80%. So we call it a hidden hero.
So Grundfos estimates that there are approximately 200 million pumps in circulation right now that require replacement. 100 million of these are located in Europe. The global power consumption could be reduced with an amount that is equivalent to the entire power consumption of Portugal. From changing out these guys. This is the one for private households, the ones for apartments, factories, offices, etc. Obviously bigger, but pumps alone. An aspect we haven't talked about massively in this video is renewable energy. I have other videos about that as well, so give those a watch. But renewable energy accounts for about 22% of Europe's energy consumption. However, as the majority of countries today are facing increasing energy prices, many are reinvesting in fossil fuels, in finite resources. And while I understand why many countries are doing this, like why they want stable, dependable energy, it's rather short-sighted, because these are very short-term investments, like putting a band-aid on a broken arm. But change is happening, and a lot of that change is driven by you and me. In 2022, gas demand decreased for buildings by 17%, which was almost entirely driven by a change of consumer behavior, like consumers investing in energy-efficient renovations and optimizations around the home. But milder temperatures just globally also has something to say here. I think there's no point in denying that corporations and governments has a massive responsibility in terms of creating the structures that make it possible for consumers to be sustainable. Consumers can't necessarily create the framework of sustainability, but we can act within it, and we have a massive power to affect and influence governments and massive corporations, even though we might not think so. So let's end this video by taking a look at some of the ways where we can reduce our resources, just around the home in general. And when I say resources, I mean heat, electricity, and water. Go check on your circulation pump, especially if you're a homeowner. Honestly, let me know down below in the comments if you go to your basement or wherever you keep your pipes and check out your circulation pump. Comment down below when you've done this and let me know what it looks like. Another thing you can do around your home is checking if your windows have a tight seal. Place a piece of paper in your window and close it, and if you can move the paper around even though the window is closed, you might not have a tight seal. There's an expression for this in Danish, and it directly transfers to heating the house of the birds, or like heating the homes of the birds. Something like that. It means that all your heat inside your home is just pouring out. I will also always recommend using a shower bucket. If you have a shower where the hot water takes a while, you can also place the bucket there and let all the cold water that you're not going to shower in anyway go into the bucket. Another piece of very low-hanging fruit is changing your energy supplier to renewable energy. Get more green energy in the grid. And avoid using the dryer whenever you do laundry. The dryer uses tremendous amounts of electricity, and it also wears down your clothes, which means that you will have to replace them, repair them, and generally just care for them a lot more than if you just air dried your clothes. Heating systems and boilers account for 60% of a household's energy consumption. So you could say that optimizing these systems is the most powerful and effective step homeowners can take. It's also typically recommended that you don't cover your radiators with something, but instead that you allow for for the heat to flow more freely. And while I understand that you want to keep your old appliances, either because you feel attachment to them, they have been working for a long time, they've been with you through the ringer, or if you also subscribe to the mentality of if it ain't broken, don't fix it, I understand that. However, there's a lot of really old appliances that are terrible for your energy bill, that uses astonishing amounts of electricity, while newer and more modern versions are a lot more efficient. You don't even have to go out and buy brand new. I've bought so many things on Facebook Marketplace that's been a couple of years old, and already there you can see a big difference. Would, however, also love to talk about the fact that we are terrible at recycling appliances, and so often they are not recycled at all. But that's a problem for a different time. It's just really annoying that we can't seem to do that. And I guess that also has something to do with why so many consumers hold on to them, especially more eco-conscious consumers, because we know that there aren't really going to be any recycling process in place. And sort of within this lane, instead of tearing down buildings, houses, or even stuff like bathroom kitchens and starting from scratch, renovating with materials already available is a much better and much more planet-friendly solution, which sort of seems to be a contrast to the previous point about replacing things that's too old. That's the case for appliances, but when it comes to a lot of building materials, using what is already in circulation is definitely the better option. At least that's the case with a lot of different materials. Also, switch your light bulbs to LEDs. There is such a massive potential to save some resources there. And this is very low-hanging fruit, but switch off your electronic devices instead of putting them on standby. Or boil your water in a kettle rather than a pot. It takes a lot longer for a stove to bring a pot of water to 100 degrees Celsius. It takes an electric kettle a lot shorter and uses a lot less energy. And the same thing can actually be said about heating leftovers in microwaves or air fryers. That is typically more energy efficient than heating up the entire oven. It might not necessarily seem like it's more sustainable to use a dishwasher, but in many cases it actually is. It takes a lot more water than many consumers typically realize when we do dishes by hand. And a lot of modern dishwashers will have eco settings that use a lot less water than you would use in a hand wash. And lastly, defrost your freezer. I don't know, I talk about this so often. If your freezer is full of frost, it takes the freezer more resources, more electricity to continuously keep all that frost frozen. It can actually take up to 20% more energy if you have your freezer full of ice and frost. Try some of them out today and let me know how you're doing down below in the comments. Let me know if you tried the paper trick with the window, the shower bucket, and let me know if you went down into your basement or wherever you keep your pipes and looked for the circulation pump. Do you want to join the Circulation Geek Club with me? This is something I'm going to talk about at dinner parties now. I'm that person. Because I live in an apartment, I don't necessarily have use for this because the apartment has a bigger pump. This is not the pump the apartment building uses anyway. So I have some friends that are getting married. I'm gonna give them a circulation pump. Yeah, we're gonna do that. Anyway, thank you so much for watching this video, and thank you so much to Grundfos for collaborating with me on this video. Have an amazing day and take really good care of yourselves. Until next time, bye.